Lieutenant Colonel Park Ji-ho checked his uniform one last time before boarding the diplomatic shuttle. The silver and blue colors of the Proxima Centauri Defense Force gleamed under the spaceport lights. At 42 years old, Park had spent 20 years building his career, and this mission could finally earn him the full colonel rank he craved. "Your bags have been loaded, sir," said the young officer beside him. "The shuttle leaves in 10 minutes. Park nodded. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Remember to send those reports to General Lee while I'm gone." The lieutenant saluted and left. Park took a deep breath and walked up the ramp into the shuttle that would take him to Earth, a planet he had never visited and had no desire to see. In the year 2157, humanity lived across 3 star systems. Earth remained the official capital of human civilization, but Proxima Centauri had grown powerful over the last century. The people of Proxima considered themselves better than Earth humans. They believed their harsh environment had made them stronger, smarter, and more worthy of leadership. Park fully believed this too. His parents and teachers had taught him that Earth people were weak and primitive. This was especially true, they said, of those with darker skin, who they claimed had not embraced the genetic improvements that many Proxima colonists had adopted. These ugly lies had become truth to Park over his lifetime. He found his seat in the first-class section of the shuttle. The diplomatic mission was simple: negotiate new mining rights in Earth's asteroid belt. Proxima needed more metals for its growing fleet of ships. Without this deal, their military expansion would slow down. "Would you like a drink before takeoff, sir?" asked a flight attendant. "Whiskey. No ice," Park replied without looking at her. The shuttle was half empty, carrying mostly diplomats and business people. As Park sipped his drink, he reviewed his notes one more time. General Lee had made it clear: failure was not an option. 6 rows behind Park, Dr. Kim Soo-jae organized the files on her tablet. At 38, she had already changed the course of human history with her work on faster-than-light travel. Her new engine design would cut travel time between star systems by half. Dr. Kim had spent 10 years working at Proxima's main research station, far from her home on Earth. Her dark skin often made her a target for prejudice on Proxima, but her brilliant mind had forced even the most biased officials to respect her work. Now she was finally returning to Earth, though she couldn't tell anyone why. Her civilian clothes, simple black pants, and a gray sweater gave no hint of her importance. Her work was classified, and her new position was still a secret. The shuttle lifted off smoothly. Dr. Kim looked out the window as Proxima Centauri's main colony grew smaller below them. She wouldn't miss the sideways glances and whispered comments she'd endured there. On Earth, things were different. Centuries of fighting against racism had created a more equal society. 2 hours into the 5-hour journey to the jump point, Dr. Kim stood up to stretch her legs. The shuttle was comfortable, but sitting for too long made her back hurt. She walked carefully down the aisle toward the restroom. At that moment, the shuttle hit a small pocket of turbulence. It wasn't dangerous, but the sudden shake caught Dr. Kim off balance. She stumbled forward, bumping into Park's seat just as he lifted his second whiskey to his lips. The golden liquid splashed across his pristine uniform. "What the hell?" Park shouted, jumping to his feet. When he turned and saw Dr. Kim, his face twisted with anger. "You clumsy Earth rat. Look what you've done." Dr. Kim stepped back, surprised by his outburst. "I'm very sorry, sir. The turbulence." "Shut up." Park's voice grew louder. Other passengers turned to watch. "This is a Proxima Defense Force uniform, not something for dirty Earth hands to touch." Dr. Kim kept her voice calm. "It was an accident. I'd be happy to pay for cleaning." Park's eyes narrowed as he looked her up and down. "Of course it was one of you. Earth people never watch where they're going, especially the dark ones." The shuttle grew quiet. No one spoke. The flight attendants looked away, pretending not to hear. Dr. Kim stood still, her face a mask that hid her feelings. She'd heard such words before. On Proxima, some people didn't bother hiding their prejudice. "I apologize again for the accident," she said firmly. "Now, if you'll excuse me." Park wasn't finished. His face had turned red with rage. "You think an apology fixes this? Do you know who I am? I'm Lieutenant Colonel Park Ji-ho, lead negotiator for Proxima Centauri. I decide if your pathetic planet gets trade deals or not." Dr. Kim said nothing. She simply waited for his tantrum to end. This silence seemed to make Park even angrier. He stepped closer to her. "Your kind should have stayed in your own section," he hissed. Then, in a final disgusting act, he spat on the floor at her feet. Gasps came from nearby passengers. One man half rose from his seat, then sat back down when Park glared at him. Dr. Kim looked Park directly in the eyes. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She tapped her neural interface, a small device behind her ear that recorded everything she saw and heard. Then she stepped around the spittle on the floor and continued to the restroom without another word. Park returned to his seat, feeling powerful. He had put an Earth person in her place, and no one had dared to stop him. In his mind, he had won. He called for another whiskey and a cleaning cloth for his uniform. In the restroom, Dr. Kim washed her hands slowly. Her hands didn't shake. Her breathing remained steady. She had faced discrimination before, but rarely so public and never so crude. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. "Record complete," said a soft voice from her neural interface. "Save or delete." "Save," Dr. Kim said quietly. "Send to personal secure server." She dried her hands and straightened her sweater. In 3 days, she would take office as Earth's new governor, the highest position in Earth government. She would control all Earth operations, including trade negotiations with other colonies. Park's mission would have to go through her office. Dr. Kim returned to her seat, avoiding Park's section entirely. For the rest of the journey, she worked on her tablet, occasionally glancing out the window at the stars. The shuttle reached the jump point and engaged its FTL drive, an older version of the engine Dr. Kim had helped design. The stars blurred, and 12 hours later, they arrived in Earth's solar system. As they approached Earth, Dr. Kim felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The blue and green planet grew larger in the viewports. Home. Park also looked at Earth, but with different feelings. To him, it was a backward place filled with people who were beneath him. He had never visited before and already couldn't wait to leave. He just needed to get the mining rights approved. Then he could return to Proxima a hero. Little did he know that the woman he had humiliated would soon hold his career in her hands. When the shuttle docked at New United Nations Spaceport in Kenya, Park gathered his things quickly. He needed to meet his team and prepare for tomorrow's negotiations. As lead negotiator, he would face Earth's new governor, a person whose identity hadn't been revealed to the Proxima delegation yet. "Good luck with your business on Earth, sir," a flight attendant said to Park as he left. He nodded without smiling. "I don't need luck. Earth needs what Proxima offers. They'll give us what we want." Dr. Kim waited until Park and most other passengers had left. A group of security officers in plain clothes met her at a private exit. One handed her a tablet with updates. "Welcome home, Governor Kim," the officer said quietly. "Your office is ready. The Proxima delegation will meet with you tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Dr. Kim nodded, her face serious but calm. "Thank you. I'm looking forward to it." As her car pulled away from the spaceport, Dr. Kim watched the African sunset paint the sky orange and red. After 10 years away, she was finally home and ready to take on her new role. And in that role, she would face Lieutenant Colonel Park Ji-ho again. Park Ji-ho woke early in his hotel room. Today was the big day. His career, his reputation, and Proxima's future all depended on this meeting. He showered, shaved, and put on his best uniform with all his medals. In the mirror, he saw what he wanted to see, a superior officer representing a superior colony. "Lieutenant Colonel, your team is waiting in the lobby," said a voice through the room's speaker system. "Tell them I'll be down in 5 minutes," Park replied. He checked his appearance one last time. The whiskey stain from yesterday's incident was completely gone, as if it had never happened. He had already forgotten the woman from the shuttle. She was nothing to him, just another Earth person who didn't matter. Downstairs, 5 other Proxima officers waited. They were all pale-skinned like Park, all proud of their colony's purity. They stood when Park approached. "Good morning, sir," said Major Han, his second in command. "The cars are ready to take us to the government center." Park nodded. "Has there been any word on who this new governor is?" "No, sir. They're keeping it very quiet. All we know is that the appointment was made last month, and this will be the governor's first major negotiation." Park smiled. "Good. A newcomer will be easier to push around. Remember our goal: full mining rights to Sector 7 with minimal oversight. Proxima needs those minerals, and we won't take no for an answer." The team traveled through Nairobi's busy streets. Earth's population had grown to 12 billion people, with megacities covering much of the planet. Park looked out the window with disgust. So many people, so crowded, so chaotic compared to Proxima's carefully planned colonies. The new United Nations Government Center rose above the city like a massive crystal tree. Its transparent branches reached toward the sky, catching the morning sunlight. It was, even Park had to admit, impressive. Security was tight. The Proxima team passed through 3 checkpoints before reaching the conference level. An Earth official in a blue uniform greeted them. "Welcome to Earth, Lieutenant Colonel Park and delegation. I am Director Wong of the Trade Department. Please follow me to the meeting room. The governor will join us shortly." They entered a large room with views of the city on one side and a long oval table in the center. Earth officials already sat on one side of the table. 6 empty chairs waited for the Proxima team. Park took his seat at the head of his delegation. He placed his tablet on the table and activated it, reviewing his talking points one last time. This negotiation would determine Proxima's ability to build new ships for the next decade. Failure was not an option. Director Wong stood. "The governor of Earth will be here momentarily. This will be Her Excellency's first official meeting since taking office 3 days ago." Park straightened his uniform. First impressions were important. He would be firm but professional. The new governor, whoever they were, needed to understand that Proxima was not asking for these mining rights. They were demanding them. The door at the far end of the room opened. Security officers entered first, taking positions along the wall. Then a group of advisors walked in, carrying tablets and folders. And then she entered. Park's heart stopped. His mouth went dry. The world seemed to slow down around him. Walking confidently toward the head of the table was the woman from the shuttle. The woman whose appearance he had mocked. The woman at whose feet he had spat. But now she wore the formal blue and gold uniform of the Earth Governor, with the United Nations emblem on her collar. Her natural black hair was styled elegantly, and she carried herself with undeniable authority. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Her Excellency Governor Kim Suji," announced Director Wong. Everyone stood. Park rose on shaky legs, his face pale. This couldn't be happening. It was impossible. Governor Kim took her place at the head of the table. "Please be seated," she said calmly. Her voice was clear and confident, nothing like the quiet tones she had used on the shuttle. As people sat down, her eyes moved around the room, greeting each person with a small nod. When her gaze reached Park, it paused for just a second longer than necessary. Their eyes met, and Park knew immediately. She remembered everything. "Welcome to Earth," Governor Kim began. "I am pleased to host the delegation from Proxima Centauri. Earth values its relationship with all human colonies, and we look forward to productive discussions." Park couldn't focus. His hands were cold, and sweat formed on his forehead. The woman he had humiliated now controlled Earth's resources, the very resources his mission needed. "Before we begin," Governor Kim continued, "I would like to introduce myself, as I am new to this role. Until recently, I served as chief quantum physicist at Proxima Research Station Alpha, where I worked on faster-than-light drive technology. My team's breakthroughs will reduce travel time between Earth and Proxima by 50% when implemented next year. Murmurs of appreciation came from both sides of the table. Park felt sick. She hadn't just been any Earth person on that shuttle. She had been one of the most important scientists on Proxima, someone who had helped his colony enormously. And now, Governor Kim said, her voice still pleasant, but her eyes cold as they met Park's again, "Let's hear what brings the Proxima delegation to Earth. Lieutenant Colonel Park, I believe you are leading today's discussion." All eyes turned to Park. He swallowed hard and tried to steady his voice. "Thank you, Governor Kim. Proxima Centauri seeks to expand our mining operations in Sector 7 of Earth's asteroid belt. We propose a 10-year agreement with full rights to all resources extracted." Governor Kim nodded, her face showing nothing. "And what does Earth receive in this arrangement?" Park fumbled with his tablet. "We offer a 12% share of processed minerals and—" 12%. Governor Kim interrupted. Her voice remained calm, but everyone heard the steel beneath it. "The standard rate for external mining rights is 30%. Why should Earth accept less than half the standard rate?" Park tried to regain his composure. This was not how the meeting was supposed to go. "Proxima's mining technology is superior to Earth's. We can extract more efficiently, meaning Earth would receive more total resources even at a lower percentage." Governor Kim tapped her tablet. A holographic display appeared above the table, showing complex calculations and projections. "According to my analysis, your efficiency improvements would increase yield by approximately 22%. That doesn't justify reducing Earth's share by 60%. Park glanced at his team. They looked confused. These numbers weren't in their briefing materials. We could offer 15%, Park said weakly. Governor Kim's expression didn't change. 28% would be the absolute minimum Earth could consider, given current market conditions. Additionally, we would require Proxima to employ Earth workers for at least 40% of the operation. This was getting worse by the second. Park had been authorized to go up to 20% at most, and the idea of hiring Earth workers would be completely unacceptable to his superiors. "Governor Kim, with all due respect, these terms are unfeasible," Park said, trying to sound confident. "I understand your position," Governor Kim replied. "Perhaps we should take a short break to allow your team to consult with your leadership on Proxima." Before Park could respond, a message appeared on his tablet. It was from General Lee on Proxima. "What is happening? These terms are outrageous. Fix this immediately." "A break would be appreciated," Park managed to say. Governor Kim nodded. "We will reconvene in 30 minutes. As people filed out of the room, Governor Kim stayed seated, working on her tablet. Park was about to leave when she looked up. "Lieutenant Colonel Park, could you stay for a moment? I believe we have some matters to discuss privately." The rest of the Proxima team glanced at Park with confusion, but left the room as requested. Soon, only Park and Governor Kim remained, with 2 security officers standing by the door. Park stood frozen, unsure what to do. "Please, sit down," Governor Kim said, gesturing to the chair beside her. Park sat stiffly, his heart pounding in his chest. Governor Kim turned to her security officers. "Please wait outside. I need a private word with the lieutenant colonel." When they were alone, Governor Kim's professional smile faded. She looked directly at Park, her eyes reflecting the pain and anger he had caused. "Do you remember me from the shuttle, Lieutenant Colonel?" Park's mouth was dry. "Governor Kim, I would like to apologize for." She held up her hand, stopping him. "I have a question first. Did you know who I was when you called me those names? When you spat at my feet? Did you know I was Earth's new governor?" "No, of course not," Park said quickly. "I had no idea. If I had known." "If you had known," Governor Kim interrupted, "you would have treated me with respect. But that's the problem, isn't it? You believe respect should be based on rank and power, not on basic human dignity. Park had no answer. For the first time in his life, he understood true fear, not fear of death or injury, but fear of consequences for his actions. Governor Kim tapped her neural interface. A small hologram appeared above the table, showing Park on the shuttle, his face twisted with hatred as he spat at her feet. "I have the entire incident recorded," she said quietly. "Every word, every action." Park felt his career slipping away. If this recording became public, he would lose everything. What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Governor Kim looked at him for a long moment. "That's an interesting question. What do I want? Justice, revenge, or something better than both?" Park stared at the small hologram showing his worst moment. His hand shook slightly as he watched himself spit at Governor Kim's feet. The image disappeared as she tapped her neural interface again. "Governor Kim, I deeply regret my behavior," Park said. His voice was unsteady. It was unprofessional and unacceptable. Governor Kim studied him carefully. Was it just unprofessional, Lieutenant Colonel? Or was it something worse? Park lowered his eyes. "It was prejudiced. I was raised to believe." "I'm not interested in your excuses," Governor Kim cut him off. "What matters is what you do now." She stood and walked to the window. The sprawling city of Nairobi stretched before them, vibrant and alive with people of all colors and backgrounds living together. "I have two options," she said. "I could release this recording to the public. Your career would end instantly. Proxima would be forced to remove you from this negotiation and probably from military service entirely." Park felt cold all over. Everything he had worked for would vanish. "Or," he asked quietly. Governor Kim turned to face him. "Or I could keep this private, between us. But there would be conditions." Park looked up. "What conditions?" "First, Proxima will accept Earth's terms for the mining rights. 28% share and 40% Earth workers." Park wanted to argue, but knew he couldn't. "And second, you will personally oversee the implementation of a new cultural exchange program between Earth and Proxima. For 1 year, you will work with Earth's Diversity Office to improve relations between our worlds." Park couldn't believe what he was hearing. A year working on cultural programs. His military career would stall completely. General Lee would be furious. "That's impossible," Park said. "I'm a military officer, not a cultural attaché." Governor Kim's expression hardened. Then perhaps a public apology would be better. "I'm sure the media would be interested in how Proxima's lead negotiator treats Earth citizens." Park saw no way out. Either option would damage his career, but the public scandal would destroy it completely. "I accept your conditions," he said finally. Governor Kim nodded. "Good. Now let's rejoin the others and continue our negotiation." As they walked toward the door, she added, "One more thing, Lieutenant Colonel. If I ever hear of you treating anyone, from any world, the way you treated me, this recording will become very public." "Do I make myself clear?" "Perfectly clear, Governor," Park replied. The rest of the negotiation went badly for Proxima. Governor Kim was professional but firm. Every proposal from Park's team was met with a better counteroffer from Earth. By the end of the day, Proxima had agreed to terms far less favorable than they had hoped for. When Park returned to his hotel, a message waited from General Lee. "Video conference, immediately." With dread, Park connected the call. General Lee's face appeared on the screen, his expression furious. "What happened today?" the general demanded. "These terms are completely unacceptable. 28% share. Earth workers making up nearly half the workforce. Have you lost your mind, Park?" Park struggled to find words. "Sir," Governor Kim was unusually firm in her position. "She knows our mining technology very well from her time on Proxima." "That's another thing," General Lee said. "How did we not know that Earth's new governor was working at our research station for 10 years? Our intelligence has failed completely. Her appointment was kept secret, sir, Park replied. No one knew until today. General Lee leaned closer to the screen. There's something you're not telling me, Park. What really happened in that meeting? Park considered telling the truth but couldn't bring himself to admit his disgraceful behavior. Governor Kim simply outmaneuvered us, sir. She came prepared with detailed knowledge of our capabilities. This isn't like you, Park, General Lee said. You've never failed like this before. Fix it tomorrow, or I'll find someone who can. The call ended. Park sat alone in his room, feeling trapped. His career was falling apart because of one moment of hatred on a shuttle. The next morning, the Proxima team gathered in the hotel lobby. They looked at Park with barely hidden anger. Sir, what's our strategy today? Major Han asked. General Lee is demanding better terms. Park knew he had to tell them something. Governor Kim has personal reasons for being difficult. I'll try to speak with her privately again. Personal reasons, Han repeated. What does that mean? It means follow my lead and say nothing unless I ask you to, Park snapped. At the government center, the second day of negotiations began no better than the first had ended. Governor Kim introduced new requirements about environmental protections that would cost Proxima even more money. During a break, Park approached her. Governor Kim, could I have another word in private? She nodded and led him to a small meeting room. Once alone, Park's frustration boiled over. You're deliberately making this impossible, he said. These environmental regulations go far beyond our agreement yesterday. Governor Kim remained calm. These are standard regulations, Lieutenant Colonel. All Earth mining operations follow them. But they'll cut our profits by at least 15%. Then perhaps Proxima should reconsider the project, she replied coolly. Park took a deep breath. Please, my career won't survive this failure. For the first time, Governor Kim's expression softened slightly. That's not my concern, Lieutenant Colonel. But if you're worried about your career, there is another option. Park looked at her warily. What option? A public apology, she said. Not just to me, but an acknowledgement of Proxima's attitudes toward Earth people, especially those with darker skin. Park stepped back as if she had slapped him. That's impossible. No one on Proxima would ever admit to such a thing officially. Then why should Earth trust Proxima with our resources? Governor Kim asked. Why should we believe your people will treat our workers fairly in these mining operations? Park had no answer. The truth was, she was right. Earth workers would face discrimination on Proxima projects. Everyone knew it, but no one talked about it. I need to consult with General Lee, Park said finally. Governor Kim nodded. Take all the time you need. Back in his hotel room, Park paced nervously before connecting the call to General Lee. This time, he told the truth about the incident on the shuttle, about Governor Kim's recording, about everything. General Lee's face grew darker with each word. When Park finished, the silence stretched for several long seconds. You spat at the feet of Earth's new governor, General Lee said finally, his voice dangerously quiet. You called her racist names, and you didn't think to report this to me immediately. I thought I could handle it, sir, Park said weakly. Handle it? General Lee exploded. You've created a diplomatic nightmare. Do you have any idea what this could do to Proxima-Earth relations? Sir, Be quiet. General Lee cut him off. Here's what will happen now. You will publicly apologize, as Governor Kim suggested. You will accept whatever terms she offers for the mining rights. And when you return to Proxima, you will be reassigned. Reassigned where, sir? Park asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. To the Cultural Affairs Office, General Lee said grimly, where you'll spend the next 5 years learning about Earth cultures and teaching our people to respect them. Consider yourself lucky you're not being discharged entirely. The call ended. Park sat heavily on his bed. His military career was effectively over. No more combat assignments, no more command positions, no promotion to full colonel. all because of one moment of hatred. The next morning, Park entered the government center alone. He had asked the rest of his team to stay behind. This was something he had to do himself. Governor Kim was already seated at the conference table, working on her tablet. She looked up as Park entered. "Lieutenant Colonel, I wasn't expecting you so early." Park took a deep breath. "Governor Kim, I would like to make a statement at today's session. A public statement about my behavior." Surprise flickered across her face. "Are you sure? Once you do this, there's no going back." "Unsure," Park said. "It's the right thing to do." For the first time since they had met, Governor Kim smiled slightly. "Then I will make sure all relevant parties are present to hear it." 2 hours later, the conference room was full. In addition to the negotiation teams, media representatives and senior officials from both Earth and Proxima had been invited to hear an important announcement regarding the mining rights agreement. Park stood at the front of the room, his heart pounding. He had spent all night writing his statement, deleting and rewriting it numerous times. Now he had to actually say the words. Governor Kim nodded to him. "Lieutenant Colonel Park has requested the opportunity to address us before we continue negotiations. Lieutenant Colonel, you have the floor." Park looked out at the expectant faces. Then he looked at Governor Kim, whose expression gave nothing away. He took a deep breath and began to speak. Park stood before the crowded room. His hands were steady, but his heart raced. He looked around at the faces watching him. Earth officials, Proxima officers, and media reporters all waited for his words. This moment would change everything. "My name is Lieutenant Colonel Park Ji-ho of the Proxima Centauri Defense Force," he began. His voice was clear and strong despite his fear. "Before we continue these negotiations, I must address a serious matter." He paused, looking directly at Governor Kim. Her expression remained neutral, but her eyes watched him carefully. 2 days ago, on the shuttle from Proxima to Earth, I encountered Governor Kim. At that time, I did not know her position. I saw only a person with dark skin, someone I had been taught to consider inferior. Murmurs spread through the room. The Proxima officers looked shocked. No one had expected this. When she accidentally bumped into me during some turbulence, I responded with hatred. I used offensive language. I insulted her based on her skin color. Park's voice became quieter, and I spat at her feet. The room erupted in shocked voices. Earth officials looked outraged. Proxima officers stared at Park with disbelief. Camera drones moved closer, capturing every moment. "Silence, please," Governor Kim said firmly. The room quieted immediately. Park continued. "My behavior was inexcusable. It reflected prejudices that have no place in relations between Earth and Proxima. I am deeply ashamed of my actions." He turned to face Governor Kim directly. "Governor Kim, I offer my most sincere apology to you personally. What I did was wrong on every level. No one deserves such treatment, regardless of their position or background." The room was completely silent now. Everyone waited for Governor Kim's response. She stood slowly. "Lieutenant Colonel Park, I accept your apology. It takes courage to admit such mistakes publicly." She turned to address the room. "What happened on that shuttle wasn't just about me. It represents a larger problem in relations between Earth and its colonies. For too long, we have allowed prejudice to exist beneath the surface of our official interactions." Governor Kim walked around the table toward Park. "Lieutenant Colonel Park's honesty today gives us an opportunity to begin changing this pattern. I propose that these negotiations include not just mining rights, but also a new cultural exchange program between our worlds." Park nodded. "Proxima will fully support such a program." General Lee's face appeared on a large screen at the side of the room. He had been watching the proceedings from Proxima. "On behalf of the Proxima government," General Lee said, his voice formal and stiff, "I also apologize for this incident. Lieutenant Colonel Park's behavior does not represent our official policy. We welcome Governor Kim's proposal for cultural exchange." Park knew the general was furious, but had no choice but to support the apology publicly. The damage was already done. The negotiations resumed after Park's statement. The terms remained largely the same, minus 28% share for Earth, 40% Earth workers, but now included funding for the new cultural exchange program. By the end of the day, the agreement was signed. Park felt both relief and dread. The mission was technically successful, but his career was in ruins, and he would soon face the anger of his fellow officers who believed he had betrayed Proxima by admitting to Prejudice. As everyone was leaving, Governor Kim approached Park. "A word in my office, Lieutenant Colonel." He followed her to a large office with views of Mount Kenya in the distance. When the door closed, she gestured for him to sit. "That couldn't have been easy," she said. Her voice was softer than he had heard before. "It was the right thing to do," Park replied. "But I don't expect to be welcomed back on Proxima with open arms." Governor Kim nodded. "Change is never easy, especially when it challenges deeply held beliefs." She tapped her neural interface, and a recording of the shuttle incident appeared again. Park watched himself with new eyes, seeing the hatred on his face, the cruelty in his actions. It made him sick to see it now. Governor Kim deleted the recording. "This no longer needs to exist." Park looked at her with surprise. "You're destroying it. After everything." "The recording served its purpose," she said. "It forced you to confront your prejudice. What matters now is what you do next." Park shook his head slightly. "General Lee is reassigning me to the Cultural Affairs Office. My military career is effectively over." To his surprise, Governor Kim smiled. "Perhaps that's where you can do the most good. Proxima needs people who understand that change is necessary." She walked to a cabinet and removed a small device. "This contains information about a project I was working on before becoming governor. A new type of FTL drive that could reduce travel time between systems by 75%, not just 50%. Park stared at the device. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because this technology could eliminate the need for mining in Earth's asteroid belt entirely," she explained. "It would allow access to resources in uninhabited systems much farther away. But it requires cooperation between Earth and Proxima to develop fully." She held out the device to him. "This is what real power looks like, Lieutenant Colonel. Not the ability to make others feel small, but the ability to create something that benefits everyone." Park took the device carefully. "You're trusting me with this, after how I treated you." "I'm trusting that the man who stood up in that room today is not the same man who spat at my feet on that shuttle," she said simply. 6 months later, Park sat in his small office in Proxima's Cultural Affairs building. His walls were covered with images of Earth, its diverse people, landscapes, and cities. A group of young Proxima officers sat in chairs before him, listening to his lecture. "The history of prejudice between Earth and Proxima is long and complex," Park told them. "But it is based on fear and ignorance, not facts." One young officer raised his hand. "Sir, is it true you were removed from military command because you apologized to an Earth official?" Park smiled slightly. "I wasn't removed. I requested this assignment after realizing how important this work is." Not entirely true, but not entirely false either. In the months since his public apology, Park had come to value his new role. The joint technology project using Governor Kim's FTL designs was proceeding well, with teams from both worlds working together successfully. Next week, Park continued, 10 of you will travel to Earth for 3 months. You'll live with Earth families, work alongside Earth colleagues, and experience their culture firsthand. When you return, you'll help others understand what you've learned." After the lecture, Park returned to his apartment. A message waited for him on his tablet from Governor Kim. "Project Phoenix has passed final testing." The message read, "The new drive works even better than expected. First joint Earth Proxima ship launches next month. Your presence at the ceremony is requested." Park smiled as he read the message. His career had changed direction completely, but perhaps for the better. The hatred he had carried for so long had been a heavier burden than he realized. His tablet chimed again. A video call from General Lee. "Lieutenant Colonel," the general said when Park answered. His tone was respectful, without the anger that had marked their conversations 6 months ago. "I've reviewed your proposal for expanding the exchange program. The Council has approved it." "Thank you, sir," Park replied. "The first group leaves for Earth next week." General Lee nodded. "The Joint Technology Project is changing perspectives here. People are starting to see that cooperation benefits everyone. Your work is contributing to that change." After the call ended, Park stood by his window, looking up at the stars. Earth was not visible from here, but he knew exactly where it was. The blue planet that he had once despised now represented a new beginning, not just for him, but for relations between their worlds. He thought about Governor Kim and how she had chosen a better path than revenge. She could have destroyed him completely, but instead, she had given him the chance to become something better. The next day, Park received another message, his travel arrangements to Earth for the ship launch ceremony. He would return to the planet he had once looked down on, but this time with very different eyes. As he packed for the journey, Park remembered something Governor Kim had said in their last meeting. "True power isn't about making others feel small. It's about creating something that benefits everyone."